You are watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, Sunday, January 8th, 2023 at around 3 p.m. And today we're playing Turn 4 of The Blinded Birder, a serialized play-by-mail game. If you're just jumping into this series now, you shouldn't watch this. You should go back and watch the previous 3 turns first. They're only about an hour each. And we've been playing these on Sundays at 3 p.m., although we missed last week because the reply didn't come in time. I thought I had a backup system where I could request a PDF from them if the reply doesn't come, but I didn't get a response to that email in time. I'll try to send those out earlier so that we can have it every Sunday at 3. Let's catch up with the chat before we talk about some preliminary stuff. Got a bunch of people in the channel. We were talking about some of the movies that got recommended during our Queen's Park Affair stream. Jonathan asks, does anyone have a chance to watch The Pale Blue Eye? I started to watch it. I haven't, I'm just a little ways in. Christian Bale's in it. He's pretty great in everything he does. I do want to apologize. I didn't really recommend Kaleidoscope last week. I just mentioned that Netflix had this new heist series that had a little gimmick where you could watch all the episodes in different orders. It's a very cool idea for a gimmick, and there were some articles online about recommended orders to watch the episodes. Did anyone watch Kaleidoscope? I forced myself to watch the whole thing because I have a couple friends in town and we have a Discord channel. We just chat about movies and TV, and everyone watched it. So I hated it. I did hate it. It's the second movie I've seen, along with Glass Onion. I feel like Netflix has got a computer. They've trained up some AI. And all of the decisions are now purely financial. They figured out formulas. We can make this show. We can make it good if we spend another year developing it and working on the script and writing. We could make this a good show. But it's not worth it for them. The extra year in development is not worth it. So they just release it. They know it's horrible. It's crap. The writing is terrible. It's all lazy. But they figure the benefits, we release it now, we hype it up, we spend our money and our effort on marketing. Who cares if it's bad? People will still watch it. Their analytics tell them people are still going to watch it no matter what. Maybe people don't care. It was bad. It was bad. It was a bad show. Bad Netflix. They do not deserve the reward. But maybe it doesn't matter now if it's good or bad. I feel like I'm a sucker. I'm being suckered by Netflix to watching all this bad stuff. So I don't know what to do about it, though. I'm not canceling my Netflix. So, all right, what else? But we were talking about the good movie recommendations that got made. The Big Short, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, To Live and Die in L.A., The Day of the Jackal. And Tina says, Kaleidoscope wasn't that bad. I thought it was. We've got Teresa Vicar, who's here, who's asked some questions about Chef's Knife, one of my least favorite murder mystery party games. But if you like that one, there's some great ones better than that ahead of you. I wonder if we're not at the tipping point for Netflix, though, where, not just Netflix in general, but where it's smarter to release things direct to streaming rather than even go through the trouble of being in the movie theater. It feels like we're right at that tipping point. Okay, let's catch up on some other things while we're before we get started here. I did do some minor microphone tweaks. I'm playing a little bit with the gadgets and stuff here. Hopefully that's not too noticeable. As far as schedule goes going forward, next week we're going to go back in time to 1938 and play File on Fenton and Farr. This is one of the original crime dossiers written by Q. Patrick. And it might take us 1 or 2 sessions, and I'll talk a little bit about, I won't go into too much history on the crime dossiers since we've done that on previous games, but maybe we'll look at some of the other dossier games that we have yet to play. You might also keep your eye open for my spoiler-free review of the Queen's Park Affair. This is the game that it took us 45 hours or so to play between Christmas and New Year. And if you have trouble sleeping, I would recommend those playthroughs as a way to help you fall asleep. That's not to say they're bad. I listened to one while I was falling asleep, and I thought it was pretty good, but it's good for falling asleep. And you might also keep your eye open for some playthroughs and reviews that Greg and I will be posting on Star Wars Clone Wars, a pandemic spin-off game, following up on Wrath of the Lich King, another pandemic spin-off made by the same author, and you'll have to watch that video to see if it's any good. The other thing you might notice on the shelf behind me is The Animals of Baker Street. That's a game that's just come out by Dave Neal, and it's targeted more towards a younger audience, but Dave Neal has a very good track record of these mystery games. So I was thinking I might play it with an eye towards whether this would make a good gift. It certainly looks beautiful. Anything else to talk about? Anyone else have any interesting projects that they want to talk about? I was just watching, I do a lot of hate watching. And hate watching is not the right word. Cringe watching might be the better word. And Rob Oren, I give a hard time to, but he's like watching a raw exposed id on YouTube. And I've talked about Rob Oren quite a bit. He's a complicated character. He's a bit of a bullshitter, and there is some real scamminess in some of his stuff, but on the other hand, he's completely, half of him is just raw and honest. So it's really a little bit of both, a little bit of Carnival Barker, Carney, fake stuff, and then some honest raw stuff. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, okay. He was going off on a rant about someone coming into the channel and plugging their channel that they were working on. He was like kicking them off right away. If you guys want to come in here and talk about project you're working on, if you have a YouTube channel, by all means, you go for it. You go mention it. It's not going to upset me. So if you guys are working on projects, especially if you join me frequently, please, by all means, tell me about the projects you're working on. If there's some creative stuff you're doing, doesn't have to be related to board gaming. And Tina says, what day do you plan to do the crime dossier? Okay, well, that's a good question. It lets me mention something else. My schedule's quite flexible, as long as it's late at night. But when I schedule these games, what I generally do is I post on the Guild forum section that you can find on Board Game Geek for this channel, Call It For Two. There's a link to it in the community tab in YouTube. And I tend to ask what games people want to play next and what days would be good. Now, I'm not going to go to extreme lengths to find a day that works for everyone. But in general, the people who continue to join me for these will help decide when we play them. So you might want to find that game queue thread where we talk about what day would be good. And then typically if Jonathan and Anna say the weekend works, then we do it on one of those days. All right. Assuming that's it, let's get to our game today. The Blinded Birder. So far quite compelling, but it's been 2 weeks since our last turn. So let's recap a little bit where we are here. Here are our last replies. If you remember, we went to the area here at Heller Hole where the body was found. This is where the body was found. And on our last turn, we sent Imogen and Wooster here. And Wooster the dog found the spot where he was killed, and then he sniffed around, and we noticed a bench here in Borley Wood, which had a good view of it. So we sent Imogen over to that bench in Borley Wood, and she could see where the body was found near a log, and she wondered, might it have been that Albright was hiding behind that log watching someone or something like that? And then she found, or Wooster found, a small shell casing. And when she called Cecily, who's our main friend here, Cecily said, I know who could analyze that shell casing and tell us about the gun, and gave us a name of someone, Mitchell Caldwell, the firearms instructor, who we located at B59. We did not go there yet, though. And then Cecily herself, she went and talked to the warden that found the body. And he described how he found it, brought over the inspector, told the inspector that was probably a pistol that shot him based on just looking at the wound. And the inspector wouldn't hear anything of it. He said, I think it's one of the poachers that I haven't been able to convict for, that keeps doing bad stuff. And our warden mentioned how that was a little weird that the inspector was so fixated on this guy, James Grossler, who's a poacher. So not much new there. And then the vicar went and actually had the breakthrough. The vicar went to a tea shop near the church down here at St. Egwin's, not his church, a rival church, the true Catholic church. One of the witnesses, the mother of our victim, told him. And down here, there was the victim was seen drinking tea with a woman. Well, we went to the tea shop, and we're told actually a very important scene. He was seen with a pretty bony-looking blonde with big eyes, and it wasn't a romantic meeting, says the worker here. They were angry. She did not like him. And then the conversation that this person overheard was him saying to her, the auction's not your problem, Kathleen. It's mine. You just do what you're told. He was a nasty man. Okay, so that was a huge little clue there. First of all, we're starting to get a picture of this guy. Maybe he wasn't all that nice. And he sounds like he's up to no good with an auction. We still don't know who Kathleen is. But now we've got a different possible thing going on. And we were speculating that there is this archaeological site here at Daneham Hill. And we were thinking, is he possibly selling stolen archaeological things? Is he selling fake stuff? Is he up to no good? Is it a crime? We were working under the assumption that maybe he saw something he shouldn't have and got shot. But now there's this additional element of this potential auction crime. And in the newspaper, I believe, is where we found out about this auction here. Saturday at 9 a.m. at Huckle and Shaw Antiquities. Anonymously agented bids are allowed. So we thought, okay, we'll send someone there to the auction. That's time sensitive. So if I look at where we sent people, We sent Cecily to the Birders Club. We learned about that in a previous week. So I'll refresh us on that for a second. We sent Imogen, the woman with Wooster the dog, since she's kind of rich and stuck up, maybe, or she runs with the rich crowd, maybe she would fit in with the auction. We sent the vicar right next door to the church where our victim was a parishioner. And we sent Cecily to the Birders Club. That was a place we wanted to go early on. I guess, where did we learn about Abel's Birder Club? Probably in the first day. Yeah, we asked the mother, does he have many friends? And she says he spent his time with his fellow birders down at Abel's. So we thought, okay, we need to follow up on him a bit more. Maybe we can run into Kathleen. So that was our hope. So we still have a bunch of places we want to go next, including this this firearm expert, although we already think from our previous reply that it was fired by a pistol. I forget if we got more details, small caliber, etc. So that's where we sent people, and we can see here, from here is our letter 3 reply. Got this nice little illustration of where we went. So Cecily went to Abel's fishing and birding tours. Imogen went to the auction, and the vicar went to the church. Remember, the way we're role-playing it is if something's time-sensitive, we like to go there early just so that we don't miss it, even though we're not sure you actually can miss it. All right, let's catch up with the chat before we reopen this reply. Matt is talking about an episode of Boris Karloff's Thriller, which I don't know that I know. I mean, obviously I know who Boris Karloff is, but I don't know what this show is, The Thriller. And it says, watch the 3 movies. Definitely see why you recommended them. Same themes as in our game, but they were dark, especially Before the Devil, or too real like The Big Short, but they were interesting. They are more you and Jonathan's cup of tea. I like lighter movies, more crime comedy or cozy mystery. Those were pretty dark. I probably should have given a warning about Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, because that one opens a pretty adult way. But I am glad you watched them. I do like them. They're some of my favorite movies. Okay, let us. By the way, you know, Greg has a new movie channel on YouTube. He's just getting it started. And I filmed a couple episodes with him, one on relationship movies and one on romance movies, top 10s. So if you're interested in that thing, you might check out Greg's channel. There's a link to it. I'll put a link to it below, but you can also find a link in the About page of the YouTube channel. All right, here we go. We're going to open our reply, letter number 3, and see what it says. I guess we'll read it from the start. Okay, here is Cecily writing to us. She's at Abel's Fishing and Birding Tours. Dearest Jessie, she says, Abel's Fishing and Birding is a standalone jumble of brick and beam at the edge of Berkeley, or Bockerley. Sorry, I wish these were a little bit narrower so my zoom would be better. Okay. A jumble of brick and beam at the edge of Bockerley, a failed Victorian napkin factory. It enjoyed a brief renaissance making parachutes during the war. After VE Day, rightly Abel Lies, his real name, bought the place for a song and now runs an outdoorsman store. Oh, I apologize. Let's see, maybe if I just read it looking down. Okay. Runs an outdoorsman store from which he leads nature tours. Jolly good "Morning, Miss Cecily," said Abel as he held the door for me. "What brings you out on such a drizzly dawn? Finally ready to upgrade those binocs of yours?" I paused under his awning to shake the rain from my umbrella, then followed him into the warm interior, which looks and smells rather like a pine forest, with Abel completing the scene like a beaming, bearded bear. "I'm looking into that awful accident with Rupert Albright," I said. "Did you know him?" Abel's smile faded. I did, Mum. He was always about, talking birds with the lads. A regular, I guess you could say." "Not a regular customer, exactly. He rarely bought much anymore." "Any more?" "Ah, well, he used to buy plenty, paid for tours and books and the whole lot. But sometime last year I got the feeling that his money had tightened. He turned into one of those types what's always in your store but rarely opens the wallet, if you'll excuse my crass." He looked at me guiltily. "He's sometimes got on my nerves with that, if I'm honest." "I know the type. When he talked with the lads, who was he talking? Who was he closest to?" Abel scratched his beard. "One lad and one lady, actually. Paul Ridge, fellow from Lickenford. They'd go out birding, practice their calls, that sort of thing. And then Charlotte Nice. Saw them together a lot." "Very good friends, would you say?" "Well, he was hoping for more, I'd say. Got the strong sense she fancied him." Okay, so we didn't find our Kathleen, who our victim was threatening, but we did find two more friends of his. Charlotte Nice, who she fancied, our victim, and Paul Ridge, a fellow from Dickenford. I don't know if that means we'll be able to find him. But let's see if we can find these two people in our directory. Charlotte Nice, let's see. C Nice, L4. And let's see if Paul Ridge is in our directory here. Yes, P Ridge is L11. I see. L is Lickerford, probably. Lickenford? Okay, where is our L neighborhood here? Is it not on the map? But we could still go to it. No. Where's L? We've got N at Netherwellow. C neighborhoods. E. B. That's an interesting idea. I don't. This is the first time we might have seen something like this. Are we in a situation where we've got locations that we can go to in the game that aren't on our map? Is that what we're dealing with here? Or is there an L neighborhood I'm not remembering? It's pretty unusual. Normally in Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, if something is in the directory but not on the map, you don't go to it. Here it seems like because we're entering it into an app, you could actually... The game might allow you to go to it even though it's not on the map. I'm just going to put a comment here, off map. It's an interesting thing, unless I'm missing something. Unless I'm missing or forgetting something. I don't think we have L locations on our map. All right. Otherwise, the other piece of information we got here is confirmation that we talked to people that said he had no money. Now we're sort of getting a fuller picture that he used to have some money and now he's run on hard times for money. That's a difference, because if you're used to living with no money, you don't have much motivation to steal and rob. But if you're suddenly, over the last year, run out of money, then you've got a real incentive to find a way to make some back. All right, let's see what Imogen and Wooster discovered. Although I don't know if we should have sent Imogen with her dog to the auction house. Now that I think of it, I'm not sure they're going to like having a dog in the auction house. Let's see what Imogen says, though. Maybe she can leave the dog at home, although she does not look like the type that will ever leave the dog at home. Feels like that dog's coming with her everywhere. Dear Jesse, Jeremiah Shaw welcomed Wooster and I into his office, which was little more than a storage closet with a desk. Oil paintings, faux silver, and dusty books filled the leaning shelves. He cleared a chair of its papers and begged me to sit. Always wonderful to have a member of the Bickford Smithy family in our midst, he said. Now what can I do for you? I told him about our inquiry. As I shared the story, his face reddened and sweat appeared on his brow. Something troubling you, Mr. Shaw? I asked. He cleared his throat. Well, we have a policy not to disclose the personal details of any of our clients. He stood up. So while I can appreciate your citizen's interest in Mr. Albright, I really must remain silent regarding any and all business dealings we may or may not have had with him or anyone else. He gestured toward the door. Good day. Looks like Imogen, we sent the right woman, because she's not going to take it. Mr. Shaw, I said, I understand how privacy is important in your line of work. Persons' reasons for auctioning their items is entirely their own. But in this case, I must insist. Mr. Albright is dead, murdered. Privacy must yield to justice. He sighed, watched me languidly scratch at Wooster's neck until it became clear I wasn't going anywhere without some information. Finally he spoke. Well, a few weeks ago, Rupert Albright came in with a piece of pottery, an artifact of the early Iron Age. I believe he wanted to auction it anonymously, which we did for him that weekend. That's all I can possibly tell you. How much did it sell for? I asked. I told you I cannot say. He leaned closer. All I can say is that the funds were wired directly from the purchasing party via Albright's bank in Netherwellow. Now, if you think you can convince his bankers that justice trumps privacy, you are welcome to try. But please, my lady, I've said all that I possibly can. All right, so she was the right person to send. Like, someone else might be a little intimidated by this guy. She's just like, we're not leaving. We're going to sit here and wait. Okay, so he's selling an artifact of the early Iron Age. There's an interesting article in the paper about this, so I think this does sound like it ties in to our archaeological dig. Piece of pottery, artifact of the Iron Age, and then he wanted to auction it anonymously. That's suspicious. And then he got a buyer that paid directly into his bank account. So a question would be, where is that bank? We might be able to find that in the directory. And then maybe details on the artifact. All right, let's see if we can't find that bank in Netherwellow. Let's see, we do have a yellow pages here. Let's see, banks. Netherwellow Bank. Well, that's pretty on the nose. Netherwellow Bank, N55. Okay. Normally in a game like this, we would take copious notes in our notebook. It seems like in these games, it almost makes more sense to just keep all your notes of immediate information here right by just underlining stuff and then rereading it. It's one of the advantages and enjoyments of this format that you can so easily reread the replies. Okay, so early Iron Age. Before we jump on, let me just see if that does line up with this newspaper article. Now look, rival professors to debate the Iron Age controversy. Just gonna say see reply 3. And let's in fact write that this is our letter 3 that we've gotten. Any thoughts so far on these? Debbie says, we definitely need to investigate the dig site and his bank for sure. Stolen from the dig site, did the auction house verify the quality of the piece? It's a good question. It doesn't seem like he must have, they obviously decided they would auction it, but doesn't tell us too much more. But he knows it's an artifact of the early Iron Age. All right, so we'll read this article today. Well, let's go ahead and read it now before we continue on to our final reply. Rival professors to debate the Iron Age controversy. All right, so we haven't read this yet. Retired chief archaeologist of the Daneham Hill dig site. That's the archaeological site. So we've got some names here. Professor Current Houndscliffe, and former Oxford professor Cedric Durant will participate in a rare public debate Friday night at the Raker Men's Club. Contesting Houndscliffe's theories regarding Iron Age Brits and their potential role in an ancient agricultural breakthrough. As I first demonstrated in a paper published in 1945, explains Houndscliffe, Daneham Hill, right here in Bockerley, is the source of the oldest smelt iron plow tips in all of Britain, nay, even the world. If this proves true, and I know it will, all conventional thinking about that era will be upended, and the name Daneham Hill will be immortalized in all scholarly works alongside my own forever. Although iron is the most abundant metal on the Earth's surface, the extraction of usable metal from oxidized iron ores is far more difficult than copper and tin smelting, used for the manufacture of bronze. Copper and tin can be melted in relatively simple, cool furnaces, such as kilns used for pottery, and then cast into molds, whereas smelted iron requires hot working and can only be melted in specially designed furnaces. The origin of smelting is unknown, but this process is generally attributed to the Hittites of Anatolia during the late Bronze Age from about 1500 BC. It was introduced into Europe through Greece in the late 11th century BC, which ultimately led to the rise of Latin culture around 500 BC. Most in the academic community believe that iron smelting arrived in Britain around then, well after early Bockerlians settled here. But Professor Houndcliffe's findings at Daneham Hill suggest that iron smelting was common here more than 1,000 years earlier, making it possible that our own British ancestors could have even invented the process. His theory is ridiculous nationalistic twaddle, says Professor Durante, the chief of Hounscliffe's many detractors. The man is a self-enamored fool. Ask anyone of real reputation. There's good reason he retreated, many say fled, from academia. Is bog iron the answer? Iron-tipped plows, called ard or scratch plows, pulled by oxen, made cultivation of heavy clay soils possible, and thus transformed civilization. Hounscliffe's dig team discovered several of these tips while working here during the war, in an area earth strata much older than when they should have existed. His team continues the dig in his name to this day, hoping still to prove his ideas. There's a simple explanation to all of it, argues Durante. Impure iron deposits in the form of bog iron ore were collected from swamplands by many Iron Age peoples. That is what happened here. Hounscliffe's iron tips are hammered bog iron, which explains his breakthrough without the need of reimagining smelting's entire history. Bitter disagreement. Gentlemen of scientific leanings are invited to observe this rousing give and take. Meal and drinks will be served Friday at 8 p.m. in the Raker Main Dining Hall, with debate immediately following. A full transcript will be made available afterwards should the public or curious women wish to judge the arguments for themselves. What the hell kind of comment is this? That just seemed out of place. Okay, well, just some iron found in this archaeological dig, and then a disagreement about whether it represents these really old finds, or what's the alternative theory? That they aren't smelted iron, that they're bog iron. He says, collected from swamplands, rather than evidence of smelting. I guess it's a different way you can get iron in these shapes other than smelting it, other than melting it down. All right. Didn't some dog walkers report seeing him near the dig site? Yes. We're going to talk to them, the dog walkers and the ghost, for sure. Someone actually made a great point that we should send Imogen to the dog walkers because of her dog. And Nicola was saying this is at a men's club, this talk is. That's why they're talking about curious women. Friday night at the Rakers Men's Club. Okay, that explains why. Doesn't say why there aren't women allowed to the men's club, but it does. Yes, it explains why women wouldn't have seen it live. But our guy sold some pottery, right? Not some iron. That's true. All right, let's see what the vicar finds when he goes to his place. I am grateful that he uses a typewriter. I wish we could convince Cecily to improve her handwriting or use a typewriter. Vicar's report, Papists and Baritones. The steps of St. Egwine's are wide and deep, harder to climb than the genteel stones before my own church at St. Peter's, and made embarrassingly of cracked concrete. He's like making a pitch for his church, like his church is better. It seems unchristian of me to remark upon these little inferiorities, so I did not bring it up when Father Klein finally met me at the doors. Good day to you, Dermot, says Klein with a genial smile. I'm afraid confessional is closed today, so if you came to recant your Protestant ways, you're flat out of luck. Excellent joke, Kermit, I said. Actually, though, I came to ask out of concern for one of your parishioners, or shall I say, former parishioners. Ah, Rupert Albright, you mean. Interesting situation, what? The funeral service was an odd and awful affair. Buried the poor chap next to his wife, which was touching. but nobody outside his mother and a few of our choir singers deigned to show. He's talking shop with him now. Did you go with Isaiah 41:10? Huh? Psalm 48, actually. Bit long-winded, don't you think, for such a small crowd? Well, we Catholics avoid cutting corners, he said. Typical. So Albright sang in your choir, is that right? Baritone, not exactly an angel's voice, but contributed well enough. He certainly knew and loved his music, even if he couldn't reproduce it all the time. He had a lovely whistle, for example. Just couldn't get the throat to follow. And which of the choir showed up for the funeral? Well, the baritone boys, vocal ranges, stick together and all that, performed a lovely Abide With Me at the gravesite over there. He motioned to the west. But they were itching to go by the end, all dry eyes outside poor Ophelia. Well, mother's tears are words too painful to speak, I said. Indeed. He scratched his nose. The choir's been practicing over at the Beam since the weather got warm enough for it. If you'd like to ask them about him, though I'm not sure you'll learn much. He kept to himself from what I could tell. I glanced left and right to verify that we were alone. Since you brought up confessional, holy man to holy man, did he ever say anything that suggested, Suggested what? Well, that he was, involved in things, dangerous things, or money things, or illegal things? As soon as I said the word illegal, Father Klein grew nervous. Dermot, are you trying to get me to break the trust of the confessional? I shrugged. I'm not asking you for specifics. I'm sure God would forgive a little hint. He shook his head. You're insufferable. I'm leaving. He strode into the church, but I called after him. I guessed right about the illegal bit, didn't I? He slammed the door, but I could see in his face that I had. I love how they can bend the rule about the confessional. Father to father. He's like, can you just give me a hint at what he confessed to? All right. Well, we got told a couple people, but this guy doesn't think they're going to be much use. He says the choir practice where? Practicing at the Besham. Though I'm not sure you'll learn much. And then he says something illegal. He thinks it was. So maybe our guy confessed to being involved in something illegal. Anything else here that's useful to us? Not really. But the Vicar Dermot actually did his job. He got the information. We're told he's a little naive, and so things might get by him, but in this case they didn't. This confirms our idea that he might be stealing and trying to sell stuff. All right, the Besham Theater is N7. This was N6, so that's exactly what we noticed before from the paper, if you'll remember, that there was a concert. N6 was the church and N7 was the concert. Right. And so we've gone to N6. We might have him go next door to talk to the singers. But actually, we were told something here. Baritone stick together. It's the baritone boys. So we're not going to find the girl Kathleen that he was involved in the scam with the baritone boys, probably. So that's unfortunate. We were hoping to get a lead on that Kathleen girl who was helping him scam the auction. All right, time to talk plans here. Catch up in the chat. Okay. Of all the people to ask about confessions, the vicar we didn't trust to send anywhere. It's true, we didn't trust him, but we sent him to the right place, because I don't think the preacher would have gotten that from anyone else. All right. Where do we want to send people? We've got 3 people. We've got Imogen, the rich woman with her trusty dog. If you want a reminder of the dog walkers, we saw them here, and they were a little bit, we thought was a side case, but as been pointed out, they actually have, I think they've seen Albright. Let me see. A trio of elderly dog walkers, including Mrs. Rosamond Rollin, saw the ghost behind the Morden Cemetery just before dawn. The dogs noticed her. Okay, so this sounded like a side case for us. But then, look at this. First of all, it's tied into the Iron Age standing stones, which are curious. And then it's tied into Albright. Because she said, this Mr. Vicknair says, remember, we could talk to him directly, look him up in the directory. But he says, I wonder if it was the soul of the Albright fellow, what died in the woods. We sometimes did see him out on our early walks, birding in the midst of those graves and old trees. So where is that ceremony? Where is that cemetery? It's right here. So there's the cemetery, and there's the archaeological dig. And there's the stones they're talking about. So I really do think we should talk to them early. The question is, where do we go to talk to them? Do we have to go to their houses individually? We've got 3 of them. We wrote down their addresses, E24, E23. That's not their addresses, sorry, that's the cemetery and the standing stones. But we've also got their individual addresses that we didn't look up, but that we could. Let's look up these people. We've got a Mr. Ballard Vicknair. Ballard Vicknair is E43. So he lives in that area. Then we've got, Ballard Vicknair is E43. Then we've got a Rosamond Rollin. She's E42, lives right next door. And then we've got a Bethany Sailor. I suppose she's going to live in that same neighborhood. E45. Let's see, where do they live? Let's look in our area here, see if we can find them. All right. Let's get in there. Okay, there's the archaeological dig. There's the cemetery where they were walking or saw the ghost. It's hanging out near Squire Stone's. And here's where they live. E43, E44, and E45. They live in these 3 houses here, the dog walkers. So we may have to knock on their individual doors to talk to them, or we could go directly to the cemetery and hope that Wooster the dog spots something, or go straight to this Iron Age Squire Stones where they think they saw the ghost. Remember, they didn't see all. Oh, yes, we did see him. We sometimes did see him on our early walks. Birding amidst the graves and old trees. So it sounds like they saw him in the cemetery, but he could have been here. So we got 5 different places in this area we could go to, or directly to the archaeological dig, or go to the dig visitor center to learn more. They might not even let us into the dig, but we certainly can go to the visitor center. That's one set of places we could go. I will notice something I didn't notice before. There is a missing dog article in the paper. I wonder if Imogene might be interested in investigating that little side case. Generous reward offered. I wonder if Imogen and Wooster want to try to go find this dog before we finish this case. If we do want to visit the choir practice, we should probably go there early since that's happening very soon, if it hasn't already happened. Then, of course, there's the firearm expert. And then there's Kathleen, who's our most promising lead, if we could identify her. I was hoping she'd be a parishioner in the church. Where else would he know her from? Let's see what the chat wants to do. Is there anything on the back of the map? No, there isn't. It's just a blank on the back. Wooster might be able to sniff out any traces left at the dig site or the standing stones. There was a memorial service too. The woman that was in love with Albright might know about Catherine. That's a good point. Did we write down her name? Charlotte, nice. Saw them together a lot. She liked him. I like that idea. I like the idea of going to Charlotte, who liked him. She might know. She saw this thing. This person says saw them together a lot. You would think she might know something about what he was up to. I like that idea. So would this fellow from Wickenford, that they went out birding a lot. Both of these people make sense. I don't know. Do you rather go to the girl that liked him, or the one he went and went birding with? Any theories about where we might find that Kathleen girl? As she was leaving, the auction's not your problem, Kathleen. It's mine. You just do what you're told. There's also the bank we could visit to find out how much money he made off that pottery. I suppose that doesn't seem that useful to us, right? I mean, whatever it was doesn't affect where we go and what we do. Nicola says, send Cecily to Charlotte, the girl that liked Albright. I see here, we were wondering about the L. Wickenford being off the map. This seems like confirmation that it is. Look, there's the 2 Wickenford. This road goes to Wickenford. So the L's aren't on the map. Well, it's a little bit, I I don't think this lead of these performers in his singing group is very intriguing, but I'm worried that we're going to miss them. I'm not sure you'll learn much. He kept to himself. Doesn't feel like that's a good lead. So maybe we skip that. And maybe we skip the bank under the assumption that however much money he made and whoever bought it is probably not important to us. And Tina says, maybe the bank, they'll tell us if there was another transfer. It's true. Like maybe he could make a connection with this buyer and sell him stuff directly. That's certainly a definite possibility. But maybe a long shot. Is the bank really going to tell us who wired the money in, though? I think maybe we double down on this hunt for Kathleen, and right now that means talking to both of those people that were his friends. Imogen is rich. Maybe she knows someone at the bank. If the singers know about the mystery woman since they were meeting nearby, that's true. He says, I'd send someone to find out if the sold pottery had been stolen from the dig. Speak to the professor in charge. The bank could tell if it's a single transaction. Let's just see if we have any pottery shops or something. I don't see any pottery. Let me just look through if there are other leads that are open that we care about. He quit his job at the carpet store. We know where the carpet store is. We know where the we can visit the carpet store. We can visit the expert on firearms. We could visit the woman that he was with. Seems to me that logically, And Tina says maybe antique shops. Nicholas says, strange that Charlotte didn't show up at Albright's funeral, come to think of it, or did I misunderstand what the priest said? Why would he quit his job if he had money troubles? How much did the pottery sell for? Okay, these are two good questions. The first question that was asked was, did the woman not show up at the funeral? Small affair, buried next to his wife who died earlier. Nobody outside his mother and a few of our choir singers deigned to show. So yeah, this woman didn't show up. I wonder why. All right, here's the question I have for you. I think we should talk to the friends. I think the leads that seem most promising to me to get us a lead to, I think our most promising lead is this Kathleen woman who was in this auction scam with him. And I think our best lead to her are people that knew and hung out with Albright. So to me, that's these two people that the guy at Abel's Birding knows. Paul Ridge, his friend that he went birding with, and Charlotte Nice, who liked him. So it feels to me like those two in Wickenford would be reasonable. Although, from a role-playing standpoint, it makes sense that we would send one person out of town and they'd go to this one and then this one. Or vice versa, rather than send two people to Wickenford. But sending two people is not a bad idea. All right, so we're going to go to one or both of these places. I'm tempted to go to both of these places at the same time, but I could be convinced to spread ourselves out a little bit. We could go to the choir boys. They might have seen him with a woman. Rob says the mystery woman might be connected to the dig site or visitor center. She could be the contact that supplied him with the goods he auctioned. That's pretty promising. Anna says, let's hope Charlotte was jealous and she found out things about Kathleen. Yeah, although we know she wasn't in a romantic relationship with Kathleen, but Charlotte may have thought they were, and she might have information about it. I do think that Rob has an interesting idea that maybe Kathleen is his contact. On the other hand, if he's seen snooping around there, I would think he found it himself. But I wouldn't mind going to the Dig Visitor Center. They might be able to tell us about people snooping around, and people might be sneaking on the site. Maybe for variety, we'll send one person to Wickenford to talk to these two people. Let's send Cecily, because Cecily's the person who's learning about this. It's always fun to send the people keep them on trail. So let's send Cecily to talk to one of these two people, and it sounds like we're interested in Charlotte the most. So let's send Cecily to L4. She's already heard about them. Now she's going to follow them up. So we're going to send Cecily to L4 to talk to Charlotte Albright's flame. Let's just put her on Albright's. What's the name of someone who has a crush on you? Albright's fan. I'm sure there's a better name for it. Okay, now I've got two more to go. What about the dodgy book the police were looking for? What was his name? That's the Grossler guy. He just seems not involved in this case. Rob says the name for that is Crusher. Okay, let's write that. Crusher. All right. Now, we're going to not send someone else to Wickenford because we're going to play this as if we're role-playing. So Cecily's going to do the traveling to Wickenford and visit both those people in 2 turns. Admirer, I like that better, perhaps. Okay, let's see. Do we have any lead based on where he was killed? Not really. We've investigated those leads. We found a bullet casing. Was there anything happening in the newspaper at the same time as the funeral? I'm not sure we were told when the funeral was. Let's see. The wife. Coroner, poacher. He was a quiet, retiring gentleman of 55, kept to himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. He thinks the poacher, I mean, the poacher may have seen something. I'm not sure we have a funeral, though. We've got the concert. We went to that. Of course, there's the whole RAF Air Force base that we thought was involved and stuff. All right. I think we're suspicious of the archaeological site, so we're going to send someone to one of these locations. So where do you guys want to go? We can go to one of the houses of the dog walkers, in which case Imogen should visit them, find out more what they saw. Or we could send someone to the visitor center of the dig. It makes sense that our first stop shouldn't be one of the places on site. It should be the visitor center. We could send the vicar there. Does no one feel like you want to go see the boys' choir people that hung out with him and sung with him? No one thinks we're going to catch a whiff of who Kathleen is from them? And then does anyone want to go to the bank? Who are we going to send to the visitor center? I think we should start off with the visitor center. The choir people might know about Kathleen. They might. They might. It was, as has been pointing out, the one reason they might is because it's near where he went to church, so they might have seen it. It's also an item that was in the paper. You can go to the bank at any time. We should go before completing the game, yeah. So, especially because the choir place is in the paper, I think maybe we should go there. So, I'm going to suggest that we send the vicar there because it's the church choir. It's where he already is hanging out. I don't think it's a great lead, but I guess if this woman Kathleen is our highest priority, and there's a chance they might have recognized her from the church, from our guy hanging out, I think we should go there. And because it's time sensitive, that they're only there today, maybe, and it's in the newspaper. Okay. So we've got the vicar staying in this neighborhood going to N7. We've got Cecily traveling to Lickenford to talk to the crusher, the admirer of Albright. So the only question now is, where does Imogen and Wooster go? Imogen and Wooster, we were saying, would make sense for her to talk to the dog walkers. So I think maybe even for fun, why don't we send Imogen, before we hit the dig, why don't we send Imogen to the one dog walker that thinks it was Albright's that they sometimes see. There's 3 dog walkers, but we're told that one of them, Mr. Vicknair, had a different theory, that it was Mr. Albright's soul, what died in the woods. We sometimes did see him on our early walks birding midst those graves and old trees. Maybe he'll tell us a little bit more about specifically what they saw him doing and when. What do you think about that? I think they're at their home. They're not at the cemetery. If you want to go find them, you have to go to their home. So that's my proposal, that we send Imogen to talk to the dog walker for fun. Before we make our way to the dig site, let's talk to someone who saw him at the dig site. Although I like the long shot that that the visitor center might have the worker Kathleen. But I also like the fun of sending Imogen with her dog to talk to the dog walkers. And there's 3 of them. But I'm willing to, if the chat wants to go somewhere else, I am willing to give the chat one of the 3 choices. I picked 2 of them. All right. I think we should talk to the witnesses while their memories are still fresh. So I'm going to say we do go to one of the dog walking witnesses, and then we'll decide whether it's worth it to go to the rest of them or something. So Vicknair, the guy who says, the guy who says he saw him by his early walks, that's his theory. That's our E43. Dog walker Vicknair. And the preacher is going to the choir. All right. Yeah, I mean, look. If you were strictly caring about mechanics and logic of the way these games were played, you wouldn't spend the time we do worrying about where to go next. That's just us putting our fun into it, making it more dramatic, worrying about what to do for the fun of it. The order doesn't really matter. It's just a fun part of the game to try to do this. And I think this is a sort of thematic choices here. So we're going to send the father right next door, the Dermot, to the theater where the choir is. This is the Quieter and Besham Theater, which is also in the paper. I think that makes sense. And then E43, Are we using different colors to do things? Not really. E43 is the... Oh, maybe it's because we couldn't see the numbers too well through the reds. And then E43 is Imogen visiting the dog walkers, which I think will just be fun. And then Cecily, we had leaving Wickenford, going to L4, which is our most promising one. Cecily to Wickenford, L4, down here. Vicar to the choir, and Imogen to talk to a fellow dog walker. Okay, let's do it. Cecily is going to L4, which hopefully the game doesn't tell us they don't want us to go there. Imogen is going to E43, and the vicar is going to N7. Let's submit it. That's it. Submitted. Done. And we've got another turn in the books. So far, this case continues to be the most engaging of the three we've played. For me, I'm not exactly sure why. Something about the setting, the context, the people is more engaging. If there was one thing I could wish, it would be to wish that Cecily could improve her handwriting or type letters to me instead of handwriting everything. I wish there was a way for me to add a little message to her to tell her to try to do a little bit better with penmanship. Rob says, does the website verify the moves you enter? So you enter an invalid location, will it complain? Yes, it absolutely will. And it's got not only will it complain if you enter an illegal, invalid location, but if you enter a location that it doesn't have anything written for, because there's no reason you should be there, it will tell you, it comes up with a little cryptic reply. It says something like, there's lots of reasons you might go there. Tell us why. And then theoretically, a human behind the scenes could read it and say, oh, that's a good point. I'll write a new paragraph for that. In practice, we found that they don't, but maybe they did in the early days of the mystery. John says, scene with the vicar and the priest was entertaining. Debbie says, I think the letter writing format makes more sense for this one. Yes, that's absolutely one of the reasons why of the three cases, this one feels more true, because it makes sense that we're writing to these people in this town who have asked for our help. And they're writing back in a more sort of informal, chatty way to us. It just feels right. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. We'll meet again next Sunday at 3 p.m. and we'll read our replies and see if maybe we can catch on to Kathleen's trail or find out what's going on at the dig. Is that where he's getting this pottery to sell? We'll find out. I'll see you next week.